An absolutely wild day in the world of Magic the Gathering. The community is absolutely on fire right now discussing the upcoming Star Trek Universe Beyond set. And on top of that, there has been a mass of Edge of Eternities leaks, and you have to see some of these cards. They are insane.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for a thick and juicy installment of Mega Magic News. We have an insane bucket load. A whole bunch of Edge of Maternity spoilers have been birthed into the world for us to look at. But before we dive into that nuttiness, we gotta talk about the absolute craziness that is the conversation surrounding Star Trek Universes Beyond, right? Now, obviously, we're dealing with Edge of Eternities right now, which is a space set which amps up the speculation around this. So that we are all on the same page, you guys need to see an image first things first. I'm going to pop it up on the screen. Now, this is a test card image for Star Trek that was released about a year ago. So this just showed up in the wilds. Now, it did show up over on 4chan, which really does make it feel somewhat not credible, right? So that showed up about a year ago, maybe a little less. And it had been circulating for a while, right? People were talking about going, there's this Star Trek playtest card. Now, it's not a playtest card, actually. What it is it's something that's used for surveys. So they would show potential people who might be interested in Magic or people who have a deep knowledge of particular subjects. So if you really know something about Transformers, they'd contact you about that for Transformers. But regardless, they do these surveys where they show different card styles and types and say, how would you feel about this treatment? How would you feel about this? And the cards that they have that Wizards does officially put in those surveys do look similar to that spot card. But that was not nearly enough for me to consider if this was worth discussing back when that came out almost a year ago. I just kind of waved it away and said, it's possible, but improbable, right? Now, flash forward to the current day. In the last 24 hours, a store actually put up listings where you could pre-order Star Trek Universe Beyond. And we're not talking about a secret layer attached to Edge of Eternities. We are talking about a full set. So that got posted up for pre-order, and that was listed for hours before it got taken down. And that has fueled speculation that we are indeed going to be getting a Star Trek Universe Beyond. Now, to put in its favor, you would say, okay, well, Wizards is clearly milking nostalgia. They're picking a bunch of stuff we already know. Star Trek is big. Those are all points in its favor that say, yes, this absolutely could be coming. But on the other side of the coin, you have the fact that we just have one random image of a card we got a long time ago. We have a listing put up by a store that was taken down, which could mean that it was real and it got taken down because they weren't supposed to do it. Or it could be because the listing isn't real and there's too much scrutiny on it. Now, add into the fact that the store that posted these listings is actually known for making stuff up. So they will post new products from Wizards of the Coast and they will say what it's going to be before there's any information about the set. Wizards will just put out a name for the set and they will literally go, it's a wrestling set and Jace is going to put Karuk in a headlock. They literally do stuff like this. And then when it turns out they're wrong, they just update the listing. Or if they list a product that doesn't exist, they just issue refunds. So there's no way to say for sure whether we're going to get a Star Trek Universe Beyond. My gut says if we're going to get Star Trek, it's going to be now as a secret layer as opposed to a full-on set. But I strongly suspect we're going to be looking at Star Wars, right? I think that Star Wars is going to be the secret layer crossover tie-in, at least one of them, that we're going to get with Edge of Eternities. It just makes too much sense, right? Star Wars is owned by Disney, right? Disney owns Marvel. So you're already dealing with the same parent corporation. Trying to negotiate the rights for another product seems like it wouldn't be too difficult, but they do have like Star Wars card games, and apparently they might be working on a Star Trek card game. So you get kind of nebulous with it. Some games don't want that overlap. Games like Final Fantasy didn't care. There's an actual Final Fantasy card game, as there's these Magic cards out there that are Final Fantasy. So when it comes to different companies, they have a different approach. You know what I mean? But ultimately, I can't rule it out. But when I looked at the postings, the images that they had there, the fact that they have a questionable reputation, and the fact that we only have one image for this isn't enough to say definitively that we're going to be getting that Star Trek action. But it also can't be ruled out. I do lean towards it either being a secret lair or nothing, though. Because remember, Wizards has tried a bunch of other crossovers that didn't actually go anywhere. We did not end up getting a Minecraft crossover, but they tried hard. That turned into Lost Caverns of Ixalan. We didn't get a Harry Potter crossover. They turned that into Strixhaven, right? And I don't even know what Kaldheim was supposed to be. Maybe that was supposed to be a God of War crossover, but ever since the Icorian days, Wizards has actually tried to have a crossover like tacked on to pretty much every set they've made in one way or another. And the only time they don't is when they've messed up and the deal has fallen through, because it takes a lot of work, a lot of money, a lot of discussion to actually get one of these licensing deals working. So at this point, I say probably no to a full-on Star Trek set, and maybe yes to a Star Trek Universe Beyond, probably a Star Wars secret lair. But again, Wizards is moving fully into Universe Beyond stuff now, right? More and more, because that's where the money is for them. That's where they can get some growth and not just shed people like they are with their own. Like Aether Drift isn't bringing new people into the game, let's be real, right? So that covers the Star Trek discussion. Now it's time to look at some insane Edge of Eternities cards. And you know what? I'm going to transform my being to discuss the universe. I have become the universe. You might even say, I have universal appeal. All right, I know that was terrible, but whatever. So we're starting out with Moonlight Meditation. 1 blue and 2 for an insane enchantment that says, enchant artifact or creature you control. The first time you would create one or more tokens each turn, you may instead create that many tokens that are copies of enchanted permanents. So you might remember this from the teaser list that we looked at, right? This is totally wild. So if you're not quite grasping how it works, you slap this enchantment down on either an artifact or creature that you have out, right? And then the next time the game goes, make treasure tokens, go ahead, make whatever kind of tokens, munition tokens, whatever it is. Basically, instead of making those tokens, like if it said make 3 treasure tokens, you don't make 3 treasure tokens. Instead, you make 3 token copies of whatever this enchants. So that is incredibly powerful. Making tokens is super easy. Obviously, the downside to this is you put it on a permanent and your opponent destroys it before you even make any tokens, then you're getting 2 for 1. And that is obviously a big problem with enchantments in Magic, but the power level of this one makes it worth risking it, right? It is pretty strong. The flavor text does nothing for me. All is the hand that weaves the fabric of being. The fabric of being is all. Pretty empty, but the artwork is pretty sweet. Like moonlit meditation done from the actual cosmos itself, where you're out in space, is a wild concept. After that, we have Terra Symbiosis, and oh man, do I love this card. 1 green and 2 for an enchantment that says, whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, you may draw that many cards. But do this only once each turn. Not your turn, once each turn. This is a card where on the surface of it, you might just go, oh, okay, it seems all right. You know, whenever you put a +1/+1 on a dude, you get to draw a card for it. But it counts the number of counters. So if you put 5 +1s on a guy in one go, you get to draw 5 cards. And green has a ton of cards that put +1/+1 on your dudes. And I mean, in a game like Commander, where you're just playing with 3 other people, you can literally be slapping counters out on your guys on each turn and draw. This is one of the craziest card draw spells for green that I have ever seen. It's obviously not on like the Great Henge level, but this is a really powerful and exciting effect. And notice, this isn't legendary. You can have multiple copies of this on the battlefield. The flavor of it shows an insect army on the march with spaceships flying above it, which I don't really care that much for that, but the flavor text gives an interesting look into the idea behind them, where it says, for Eumidians, terraforming and evolution are one and the same. They grow as their planet grows in lockstep coexistence. Now that is an incredibly awesome concept, right? That's like similar to the idea of elves being tied to nature, but these things are tied to the nature specifically of their planet and will grow as the planet's like nature does. So that is definitely a funky concept, even if it is a little bit weird to me to see spaceships in the sky. What are you going to do? This is the outer space set, right? I am currently a pig in space. All right, what do we got next? We've got, this is from the special bonus list. This is Cathedral of War. So it's a land that enters tapped, has exalted, and taps for a colorless. Notice, I think each of these has different spaceships on them, right? I didn't realize that before. There's a little rocket flying off on a different one, and this is definitely a completely different shape. It is pretty wild seeing that planet getting sucked into a black hole, though. That is interesting artwork, even if it feels jarring. Moving on. We've got Bonder's Enclave. Oh, it is different spaceships. Look, this one has a different spaceship zooping in. That one looks almost like it's half alive, right? Like some kind of giant space whale. So, this is a land that taps for a colorless or 3 and tap, draw a card, but activate only if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. I love Bonder's Enclave because I play big green dumb decks. So this is an easy include that gives you mana and also gets you card draw. It's easy to have a beef boy out. So yeah, not too bad. The artwork, oh bro, there's a bunch of space whales floating around this asteroid. All right, that's pretty funky. I'll give them that. I'll give them that. A bunch of space whales circling like that is interesting. Moving on. We've got the Sliver token. You guys might remember when we talked about the teasers, I told you that there is a card that generates Sliver tokens at the end of your turn. So it'll make 2 of these little 1/1 dorks on top of having affinity for slivers and giving your slivers double strike and trample. If you didn't hear about that, go check out my Edge of Eternities teaser video, all right? So next up, we got Pinnacle Starcage. This is an interesting one. 2 white and 1 artifact. When it enters, exile all artifacts and creatures with mana value 2 or less until this artifact leaves the battlefield. So straight up, a powerful effect that'll get rid of everything that costs 2 or less in terms of artifacts or creatures. And it has 2 white and 6. Put each card exiled with this artifact into its owner's graveyard. Then create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token for each card put into a graveyard this way. But you have to sacrifice this artifact, right? And you know it's pretty wonky. It's a pretty wonky concept of I'm going to trap all this stuff in here, but then I can free it myself if I want to. It's just going to the graveyard, right? So the cards don't come back into play with the it's weird because the cards will come back into play if you get rid of this artifact. But if the player if the player sacrifices it, then that's not going to happen because all the cards that are exiled with it go into the graveyard, so they can't come back to the battlefield. So it's an interesting way to permanently get rid of the permanents, but it affects your stuff too and gives you a bunch of 2/2 donks. Not too shabby at all for 3 mana. Very strong, awesome answer to decks that use a ton of tokens because you just jork them out and they're gone, right? On top of that, this is a very cool concept. If I'm not mistaken, this is a Dyson sphere. Now, I am not heavily versed in science fiction, so I just recently learned what a Dyson sphere is. And the idea is you take a star equivalent to like Earth's sun or whatever, right? Where all that, you know how we have solar panels? You take solar panels and you completely cover, you ensconce this sun in the midst of endless amounts of solar panels. So basically every single particle of solar energy is being captured for you to use. And that is a super clever idea. Whoever first came up with that conceptually, it's awesome and it makes perfect sense. Like if you can harness the power of the sun, why wouldn't you want to like encapsulate the whole thing? Unless of course you needed its light to be emanating outwards. So this has a similar kind of vibe. And actually there is another one from Magic called Caged Sun, literally, which would also feel like a very good include. But I don't believe that the special guests will have anything like that. And the bonus sheet is all land. So we're probably not going to see Caged Sun, but very interesting conceptually, right? After that, we've got Evendo. It's a weird name. Waking Haven. So this is a land. This is one of those mythic land cycle that we talked about in the previous teaser video. And I told you guys that it would, at 12, would tap for a green for each creature you have, right? Here it is, right? The blue one does the same thing for artifacts. It gives you a blue for every artifact you have. The black one that we talked about recently, that has been spoiled as well. Since that one's older, I didn't include it. But just to let you know, the information we have on the cycle is correct. So this is pretty funky, right? You've got a planet here where nature is growing up in massive capacity. This kind of feels like it might go along with that green enchantment that we saw before in terms of a planet where the creatures are in symbiosis with it. So the more creatures you have, the more mana that you can generate. This planet, everybody is linked into it. But I don't know if it's actually connected to the Eumidians or anything like that. It's a cool card. Having to station up to 12, station up to 12 tokens. You have to tap 12 powers worth of creatures before you can actually use its ability. So it will remain to be seen how hyped this card will be. But I imagine for things like Commander, where you have a little bit of more time to develop, that this will probably be a house and a go-to answer for people who can't afford $1,000 to buy a Gaia's Cradle or don't want to proxy it, right? Honestly, it's this one doesn't bother me as much with the space vibe, really. You know what I mean? I like the trees and nature growing up out of it. The spaceship zipping by. You got the black void in the back. Is that supposed to be Sulfera? Either way, it's not too shabby. All right. After that, we have Vote Out. 1 black and 3 sorcery. Convoke, so you can tap creatures to help cast the spell. Destroy target creature. And it says, democracy is not always just. I'm surprised it doesn't say exile. You noticed on the other card that we talked about in a recent video, the black creature destruction was also destruction instead of exiling. I think Wizards has kind of pulled back on the straight up exiling and stuff like that. We're in this crazy race where they keep adding ward and other abilities to cards to make them harder to get rid of. And then they make the answer stronger, but then you just it's an endless escalation. So this might be an attempt to slightly de-escalate. Look at this fat little 4-armed blobby boy. He just looks so goofy. Yeah, I can see why they chose to vote him out. Get out of here. Oh, is this supposed to be a reference to that video game that everybody played with the 2-legged fat guys where you have to vote people out and they get kicked off into space? Among Us? What is it called? I don't remember what it's called. Either way, I feel like that might be what this is referencing. Then we've got Cosmo Grand Zenith. This is a powerhouse card. 1 white and 2, 2/4. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, choose one. Make 2/1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So either grow your army or grow your army. You either grow it in amount or grow it in size. Make them bigger or make more of them. And that ability to make 2/1/1 creature tokens would dovetail beautifully with the blue enchantment that we saw at the beginning of these spoilers, right? Every turn, this will just generate 2 copies of your best permanent. You could literally enchant her with that enchantment. Oh, look, I put this enchantment on her. I go to make 2/1/1s. Nope, I make 2 more Cosmo Grand Zeniths. Oh, okay. So now the next turn when I cast my second spell, 3 of these guys trigger, right? Like, what? And the first one will make 2 more of these Cosmo Grands. So very cool. I don't like the outfit. I don't like this like weird, check it out, I'm in the future, and in the future we wear stuff on our chins. That's how you know it's the future. I got aluminum foil glued to my face, boy. I just don't like it. It does not vibe for me. The artwork feels boring. It really does. You've got a lady here with a crazy magic sword, but it just kind of feels dull, doesn't it? I don't know. Anyways, moving on. We've got Ruinous Rampage. That's what I like to go on, baby. 2 red and 1 sorcery. Choose one. 3 damage to each opponent, or exile all artifacts with mana value 3 or less. Now, back in the day, this would have been an insane super powerhouse card beyond all compare, and would have been a rare at least. But by today's standards, the power level has gotten so high that I don't know. I mean, it feels middle of the road to me, and it will literally hit everybody for 3, or exile every artifact that costs mana 3 or less, right? So get rid of a bunch of tokens, all that kind of stuff. It has some versatility, but its casting cost makes me wonder, is this actually any good. I don't know. Maybe it'll turn out that I'm wrong, but it is also sorcery speed, right? So I feel like this is probably the whatever. There's better ways to get rid of artifacts, right? You can just overload a spell and blast everybody's artifacts, all of them that aren't yours. So I don't know. I don't know where there's room for this card other than in limited. Moving on. We've got Warping Whale. Check out this crazy style, right? So this is a reprint. We're going to be getting styles like this. I find this to be pretty sweet overall. You take a look at it and go, hey man, not too shabby, right? One colorless and 1 to either exile a target creature with power toughness 1 or less, counter target sorcery spell, or create a 1/1 Eldrazi Scion creature token. Those are your options, and they're clearly laid out here, unlike a lot of secret layer treatment styles we see where you can't read the card. So you can see the cast and cost, see what the card is. The only thing that's not accurate on this card, nobody's going to be selling this for 50 cents. You see that price tag? You ain't going to get it for that, right? Does it have a M for mythic? Oh, it's a special guest, so they just automatically count it as a mythic. Okay, fair enough. So, not too shabby. Artwork's pretty wild, right? And then we've got Consult the Star Charts, a blue and 1 instant with a kicker of a blue and 1. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is a number of lands you control. Put one of those cards into your hand. If the spell was kicked, put 2 of those cards into your hand instead. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This is pretty underwhelming from a rare perspective, right? You pay 2 mana, you get to look at the top X card of your land, where it's equal to number of lands. So you can actually dig pretty deep. At the beginning, you're not going to get to look very much, right? You got 3 lands out, you're going to look 3 cards deep. But you got 10 lands out, you're going to get to look 10 deep. And when you pay the kicker, you can actually get 2 cards. You know, the more I think about it, it actually is one of those cards that at first feels underwhelming, but once you play it in practice, you realize it's got a lot of maneuverability. It can give you 2 cards out of the top X number of cards out of your deck and costs at max 4 mana and is instant speed. I'll fully admit that when I read it first, I was kind of underwhelmed. And speaking of underwhelmed, I find this artwork to be really uninspired. I know that this is just some dude standing here working digi keyboards or whatever, and the space around him, he's in like a little hologram deck or whatever, but it just feels so generic. There's nothing exciting about this artwork. There's nothing eye-catching about it. There's nothing to draw you in. There isn't a sense of urgency. There is like, consult the star charts for what? This guy looks like I look like when I'm looking at a fortune cookie. You know what I mean? Like, okay, whatever. It's that kind of a vibe. So a solid card, but kind of forgettable artwork, right? So the last card we're going to talk about is the Infinite Guideline Station. This is 1 of every color for a 715 spacecraft. You do have to station it to 12 to get there though. So when it enters, create a tap 2/2 robot artifact creature token for each multicolored permanent you control. So this guy counts. You will get to make at least 1 2/2 robot. So this is the only spacecraft that I know of that literally generates creatures that can station it, right? Pretty crazy. And then when you get it stationed, whenever it attacks, you draw a card for each multicolored permanent you control. So it'll be a 715 flyer that draws you at least 1 card every time it attacks. That's pretty nutty, and this can be your commander, which feels weird. This space base is my commander. But that wraps up all of the spoiler cards that I had to discuss. Let me know your favorites down in the comments. A big thank you to both my channel members and my patrons for supporting my channel directly. You guys rule, and I will see you all, my friends, in the next video.